Miss Mary, thank you very much for
Hello.
spending some time with us today. We're gonna talk a little bit about homotoxicology today. It's the word that many of our parents and many of our patients that come to our clinic are somewhat unfamiliar with, but that's what we wanted to do today. Talk about those questions, and maybe we can start with you telling us a little bit about you and how did you start with homotoxicology in general?
Thank you, Dina, for inviting me to speak about homotoxicology and bioregulatory medicine. Yes, I'm a homeopath and I'm a consultant for parents who have children with health issues, such as neurological issues or chronic health problems, autoimmune. And we troubleshoot and we talk about therapies, doctors, practitioners, things that can help that child become unstuck and move to the next level. And basically, my training is on bioregulatory medicine. There's not a lot of books out there on this. So this is a really good one. It's written by 4 doctors and 1, I think, nutritionist. And those doctors are, some of them are, well, most of them are medical doctors, but they were trained in bioregulatory medicine in Germany and in France, and I think some other places too, because it came from those countries back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. So not a lot of people understand what bioregulatory medicine and homotoxicology are. So I know a lot of people are familiar with homeopathy, where they hear about arnica, which is, for instance, this little bottle. You see arnica 30C. So it's one ingredient and it's one potency. And the way a homeopathic remedy is made is, for instance, you get arnica, and that's you grind it down, you put it into a tincture, you add maybe 99 parts of water or sucrose or alcohol, and you put them in these machines and shake them. And then you take one part of that and put it in 99 parts of, whatever medium you're using, and you shake it. So that's a 2x. Then you do that again, that's a 3x. By the time the arnica has been diluted and shaken to a 6x, it's been diluted to 1 part per million. By the time it's a 9x frequency, it's 1 part per billion. And once it hits that 24x, so it's been diluted and shaken 24 times, you're kind of passing what they call that Avogadro's number, that there's no original material, arnica, in the bottle anymore. It's all been diluted out. And the theory is that it picks up the essence or the energy of the medicinal properties of the arnica. So that's classical homeopathy. Homotoxicology is working on that same model, but you're using many different constituents in the bottle. So here's an example. This is the UNDA line. This is UNDA 13. And it says for symptoms of bloating, colic, and abdominal cramping. And if you look on the bottle, it has 5 constituents with different potencies in it. So it's going to be working on somewhat of a different level. It's going to be addressing what the indication is, what directly what the problem is. Whereas in classical homeopathy, they do more of a symptom picture to determine what homeopathic remedy you would use. So homotoxicology would be using like cures like to assist the body to remove blockages. So if you look on like a timeline of the kind of the method of healing, the bioregulatory practitioners would look at using homotoxicology as a way to start because it's considered more of the catalysts. So, our body's full of, all kinds of different components, blood and lymph material and cytokines and neuropeptides. And the catalysts are going to then sort of trigger or activate on that biochemical level those systems. And then those systems then start to work even better. So it's sort of a little push. So I got into this initially because I was in the chemical industry. And I had a feeling that I was exposed to a lot of things that I shouldn't have been exposed to when I was pregnant. And that when my son was having a lot of problems as an infant and a toddler with diarrhea, and then it would switch to constipation. He had a lot of ear infections, slow toenail and hair growth, that it seemed to me that the vitamins that my naturopath and my doctor was, prescribing, and even some of the medications, they would do a little, but not a lot. Like I still felt like things weren't being broken down properly, because I could see that in his stool, the food wasn't being broken down properly. I could see the corn, I could see, all these other things. So I was just kind of wondering, what's his absorption looking like? And then when I met a doctor that used bioregulatory medicine, I started noticing that this sort of jump started my son's, basically his metabolism, his whole metabolic system. So I started noticing that he was having more bowel movements, more urination. He was hungrier because it was speeding up his metabolism. So he was looking for more food. His hair started growing in with a pretty shine to it, and his nails and toenails were growing. And the circles under his eyes started to get better. And I just felt like now whatever he was eating on that biochemical level, that the food was being broken down. So that meant that his energy systems were better. And then we went into the functional level, and he did a lot of applied behavior analysis, ABA. We did some brain gym stuffs to help with the primitive reflexes. And I started to kind of see that he was doing really well. And the therapist would tell me, like, wow, we showed him this, and he was really running with the ball. And his ABA school was showing him, how to read, and he was getting through his Edmark reading programs just a lot faster. And the only thing that I did differently from the year before when he was at the same school was that I added in the bioregulatory medicine, these catalysts, these drainage remedies that then kind of like pushed everything to that next level. And and then he just started doing better and better. And then I just started to explain this to some of my friends that also had children that were attending the same school. And then slowly I just started moving into, consulting with other, families and people, and people all over the world actually that have, found this. And it is gaining speed. People are learning about it. Homeopathy isn't such a weird word that it was, 25 years ago when I had learned about it. And so that's been really exciting to see that, this is being, more embraced on a bigger level over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a little bit now. So back then, that was when your son was young. Today, he is how old?
He's 30. He's going to be 33 next week.
Nice. And graduated college and doing very well.
Yes, he's done very, very well. We're very proud of him. He went to college. He got his associate's degree, and he's driving a car. He's working. He's living independently, has friends. So, I just didn't, we never know where our kids are going to be as adults. And we have our story in our head of what we hope for them.
Right.
And back when he was diagnosed on the spectrum at 2, I wouldn't even dreamed of him at 33 doing what he's doing. I wouldn't even set myself up to even hope for that, because I wouldn't want my bubble to be burst. But since I started consulting with families, there are some kids that they really run through those steps. You hit them on the bioenergetic step, and then you see the biochemistry work better, and then the structural, and then they're functioning better. And it can happen very, very rapidly. And you can see that the child might even move out of even having a diagnosis. And then some kids, they're hit a little bit harder, and that's kind of a spectrum too. And so, we all try to not compare our kids to other kids. It's to where they were before, and then moving them up, and then celebrating all those points along the way. Because I've worked with some families, and the kids were nonverbal at 6 or 7, and now they're teenagers, and they are chatting with me through the talking board or through their computer. But they are feeling good. They tell me that they're sleeping well, and that they're eating well, and they understand the vitamins, and they understand homeopathics. And but it's I'm sure it's frustrating for them that they have trouble speaking through their mouths, but they're still speaking and they're communicating through their fingers. And that's just been, again, such a beautiful gift to see these young individuals flourish. So who are we to say, what's right or wrong or what we want to see? They're on their own journey, but I feel like homotoxicology will make that child as healthy as they can possibly be. And then with the right diet on the biochemical level, the right supplements, some kids need to use medications. And then with the right rehab therapies, like that's where we have to start with the most health. And then we say our prayers and we kind of give them the ball and we just see where they go with it.
It's funny because I remember many years ago when you and I first got a chance to work together. It was also a recommendation from another mom when my kiddo was just diagnosed. And I'm sure many parents will be able to relate to this part when you get the diagnosis, right? It's like your world crumbles. All you see is you got a diagnosis and that's it. And then your next stage after that is looking for answers, looking for opportunities, looking for anything and everything that could help my child, right? And I remember that day. I remember when I got your information from one of the moms, and I contacted you, and we had our consultation set up. And I was one of those lost moms in the world of I call it awesomeness with an AU, right? When I said, help me understand this. I'm a blind person. Once you help me understand what this looks like and why these things are happening, why is my child behaving in a certain way? Why are we having these stimmings? And what is this? And how is that? What's happening with the sensory overload? And where is that? What's causing that, right? Not yes, I know we'll get it, right? I know we go to ABA and we go with, a bunch of other things that kind of go along with the process, but you were able to break it down to me back then. And I remember when you said, well, Dina, you start with the basics. You got to go under with the underlying cause. At the end of the day, it's all about gut and brain connection. It's about the leaky gut and the toxins that are not quite processing and they're just stuck. And then after that, your body just ultimately has these blockages. So now we're just going to figure out how to unblock it all. And I thought, okay, well, that makes sense, but how does that happen? How do you do that? So the how part is where what you did. You delivered that how part on a silver platter and you explained those steps. You said, well, this is where it starts and this is how the underlying challenges happen. And then this is where your next one is. And then this is where you can add those as we continue throughout the journey. And in the few years that we've known each other now, my kiddo has been progressing very nicely and very well with add-ons and other alternative things that we were able to add as we continued. And then there was that other part where I remember you said, well, you just have to remember it all goes from stages, right? You have to know and see when the child is ready. So help us understand that part. What are those stages and how do you know where you are and which stage you're on and how do you get to the next stage and when are you ready?
That's a good question. You read on the internet that, my child did methyl B12 shots and they recovered from autism. So that's on the biochemical level, that's molecular. And so something happened with that methylation system that got kickstarted, and then the detoxification pathways started working better. So that is, but then if you try that, then, I used to try that. I would say, oh, then I'm going to do that and I'm going to recover my son. Yeah. And I wouldn't get the same result. And I'm so frustrated. And then I would hear, we did the casein gluten-free diet and my child recovered. And that's on biochemical level too. So they took out probably inflammatory foods. It was enough to take the stress out the system. And then the body started kind of running with the ball. But my son was pretty toxic. So I needed to actually go to that bioenergetic level. I needed to actually work with these doctors, work with these products that, like I said, have been around for 100 years, some of them. In classical homeopathy, 300 years old. But using signals to sort of jumpstart his system to recognize the toxins that were in there. And then his immune system started to then do what it was supposed to do. But it didn't have the energy initially to do it. So usually if somebody wants to do a consultation with me, It's those kids that methyl B12 shots didn't do the trick, or the diet helped, but not that much. Or they did a bunch of herbs to, try to get that gut brain connection under control. It helped, but not that much. And it's like, well, let's go then to that deeper level. So some kids, I think, would need bioregulatory therapeutics. Some kids don't. They're not as toxic. They didn't have so many toxins that went intracellular. So just taking a little bit of stress off the body, they were able to get where they needed to go and to ultimately function really, really well. So that's kind of how I feel about it. It's, if a new parent calls me and they're saying that they think that their child they're interested in homotoxicology, would their child benefit from that? So my first question in my head is, well, how well is their body even functioning to begin with? And, like how often you have a bowel movement. And if they say, well, once every 2 or 3 days, that's going to be a red flag that they're not great eliminators, right? And then, and what's causing that? Or their teeth were really slow to fall out. They're 7 years old and none of their baby teeth fell out. It's like, why don't they have enough cellular energy to form permanent teeth and push it down? So, then bioregulatory medicine would make sense to that parent. Like, let's figure out, let's talk about maybe finding the right catalysts that then can trigger the body and put some energy in and keep moving them, to where they need to go.
Yep. And like, I know in our clinic as well, many times I have parents that come in and they say, well, we would like to do MERT, but how do I know that this is going to be the thing that will help? And why is it? Why? Again, the why, right? Why is it that it works for one child, but not the other? And I tell them the same thing, right? As always, it all depends on where your body is, your child's body is at this certain stage, right? Like with my child, I was very fortunate to have met you at our early age of my child, and we were able to understand the schematics of the process, and we started to look on the detox process and the cleansing and getting rid of some of these toxins and opening up some of these pathways to kind of help her get to the level where she could then take advantage of other things that could now help her get to the next level, right? And then we've done a bunch of other things, right? I mean, MERT is including, right? And MERT did help us a lot, right? My daughter started talking after that. But many times people say, oh, well, that's it. If your daughter start talking from after MERT, then I should do the same. And then they get upset because their child is not there. And I always say, every child is different. First of all, you have a spectrum, right? Autism spectrum has got a whole lot of things, but you also got to look at this gut concept first, understand your inflammation, where you are, what needs to be done, right? And again, right, so same thing, just like I said many years ago, you said that to me. You just have to go gradually, step by step, understand where you are and do some testing. Okay, so let's talk. We've talked about the homotoxicology and your journey, and of course the journey that my child has gone through with all your help. For the viewers and the parents that are watching us today, what would be your recommendations? Where would they start? Are there books? You mentioned one of them already. So which books could we read? What websites do we have? How do we get a hold of you? Give us some of that info.
Okay. The BRMI.org, that stands for Bioregulatory Medicine Institute. That's a really great website. And they have a lot of interviews that they've done with many different practitioners that practice this kind. And they have a lot of articles, a lot of research, and also epidemicanswers.org. They do a lot of podcasts and interviews, and they have a lot of research. They just did a study that was published in a pretty serious periodical or magazine on 2 children that were twins, and how quickly they moved out of autism. And I was actually on their team too with the Bioregulatory Therapeutics. And also, dive into Googling homotoxicology, Google bioregulatory medicine, homeopathy. And again, this is a really great book, this bioregulatory medicine book. They just break it down for us in such a beautiful and simple way. And you can go to my website, which is www.realchildcenter.com. And you can email me any questions at wellnessny@realchildcenter.com. And there are some interviews that I've done that I've presented on that website. And yeah, just keep searching and learning. I mean, turn into a Dina. Because when Dina called me up, she asked me about every therapy basically that was out there. You know, what was my opinion? When her daughter try it, use it. Is it a good one? Is it a bad one? And I've just learned so much from Dina, from the experiences that she's had with her daughter. And I just remember doing a happy dance when she did the mert and she spelled out equinox on the rental car. And I was like, this is so great. And I've been telling a lot of people that story ever since. So yeah, Dina's just full of a ton of information. She really understands that whole model that I just talked about, the bioenergetic, the biochemical, the structural level, and then to function better. And there's lots of categories in between. Dina's, you're just been amazing.
Thank you. Well, I can't say it enough. And like I said, many years ago, I had no idea what we just got into. And if it wasn't for you, there's no way we would have been able to get to that day when my daughter started to spell things. Today, she's able to express herself in words. Yes, we've tried a lot of things. And I just think that many of the parents that I know I've met through the clinic and in personal life would truly appreciate the concept of having open opportunities and learning and seeing what else is out there, finding ways to build their own pathway for their children, because every child is different and every body is different. But this is where having a good coach and mentor and a consult with you can really help understand and go, maybe this is the one, maybe this is the next stage, maybe this could be something that we could try. At least something that kind of gives us an opportunity to have a discussion and continue to do the fight that we do, us warrior moms, right? We look after our children, we do whatever it takes, and hopefully as we continue, we'll find a way to get more and more parents with an opportunity and to have a better night's sleep, where we're not worried about the future, or maybe not worried about it as much, and when we can actually imagine the future of having our children, just like your son, having an opportunity to have an independent life, go to school, and enjoy some parts of life. I don't call it normal life, but a good life, to the best of what they can at whatever stage they are. So we thank you for your time. Like I said, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of parents that's going to be reaching out. I know I have a lot of parents that come to our clinic, and those are daily conversations. So if your ears are burning, that's probably the reason why. You know, I always tell everybody, I don't know it all, but I have learned, and I had a good teacher. So hopefully, I'm sure we'll continue. I know you have a lot of folks that come your way that do end up trying MERT as well. Like I said, it's one of those formulas, right? And it doesn't work the same for everybody. But there is a bit of a science to that process. And once you crack down that code, which could be a little overwhelming at first, as I remember, but this is where call Mary is my answer. I always say, call Miss Mary. She will walk you through it, and she'll explain it to you and put it in the terms that you can actually be able to relate to. Not understand, but relate to, and be able to go through that and see some of those great results and see the kiddos respond well.
It's definitely a team effort. You know, once the moms know what to look for, then they become great detectives. They become fabulous health detectives. And then it's not me telling everybody what to do or what I think. It's really a group effort, you know, team effort. And that's where a synergy happens. And it isn't 1 + 1 brain means 2. It turns into 5 and 6 and 10 brains. And the ideas are flowing and the creativity comes out of that. And before I forget, I look forward to meeting you in person in Orlando, Florida at the Documenting Hope Conference at the middle of November, I think is when it's going to be. So, and anybody watching, please, you know, if you end up, you know, joining us, say hello, introduce yourself, because Dina and I will be there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I know I already know I have a handful of parents already booked their flights and ready to go. So it sounds like it's going to
Excellent.
be a good party.
Great.
All right, my love. Well, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for all your time. I'm sure we'll stay in touch as always. And I know I said it to you many years ago. You're stuck with me now. So you just stuck with me.
That's not a bad thing to be stuck with. I think you're stuck with me too, Dean.
You are the best, Miss Mary.